So I'll give Bill Clinton kudos for that. He saw what the American people wanted, and he became, I'm going to work with Newt Gingrich and to John Kasich and others to make this economy work better. But all in all, the economic policies of George H.W. Bush is what led to the economic boom of the 1990s. And a lot of the economic policies, the overregulation, also the deregulation of some things in the housing market, led to problems that led into the recession that we just now are still in, really, in my opinion.
I'm sorry. I thought you had something to say.
No.
I was just waiting.
She's looking at me. I'm just listening to Garrett.
Yeah.
All right. And, I when you think about someone who has amassed the fortune that the Clintons have, I don't know how to say it, but I don't know why they would be concerned about economics, because it doesn't affect them.
Well, I think it should affect them.
It should.
It should affect them. And when it comes to whether economics are going to affect you, it affects Mr. Trump more. Okay? And I even have, we have said this on the air, I have grave concerns about both of these candidates and a lot of their policies. However, Hillary Clinton does not seem to be able to bring in the advisors on the economy because there just are not that many advisors on the left. In fact, many of the left-wing economists sided with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
so
that's scary.
Yeah, and she's not going to be able to get them anyway, even to have someone who is somewhat educated, even though I believe that a lot of those economic policies were incorrect. She's not going to be able to pick those up. Donald Trump has Stephen Moore and Art Laffer, who led the economic revitalization through the Reagan administration and then into the early George H.W. Bush, and then again even in the George W. Bush years leading into that. The other issue that I have with Hillary Clinton's statements, where she talks about increasing regulation. Well, I understand we have to have checks and balances when it comes to the financial systems, but they have never been able to put in the correct checks and balances on the right things. They deregulate housing to the point that you do not have the proper checks before someone can get a home loan, and that's what caused the home mortgage crisis that led into this. But yet they're going to overregulate banks to the point that, we can't expect to have free checking if we're going to put in regulation on banks that cost them even more and more money. And I'm not saying the banks are the the banks have done plenty wrong, but it is the job of the Congress and the president to go back in and hold people accountable for the mistakes that they have made, and even the government, because a lot of the mistakes that were made in the banking crisis happened through the government. And we cannot say that the government's always right, because it's not. I mean, we have made so many mistakes when it comes to economic policy, when it comes to healthcare policy. We can't even go into Obamacare. We can't even go into veterans care. And to say that we're going to let them regulate the banks and they're going to be able to fix an economic problem of income inequality or any of those natures, when it's not, that is not the purpose of it. If you free up the economy and you allow companies to grow and jobs to be created, then income inequality will fix itself. The government only creates inequality. It cannot create equality on its own. And that's an issue.
Yeah, it sure is. And, Gary, don't you think, when you think about government, though, don't you think we've morphed into something that was never intended for our government? I mean, I believe we have the greatest form of government, the republic.
Right.
And the people have a voice in it, but it appears that, well, of course, Congress and Senate, they were not supposed to be full-time jobs to start with.
Right.
So we've created this bureaucracy that regulates everything.
Well, when you have one of this size, Congress cannot regulate it to begin with. They don't have the time. There's no way that you have the time. The amassed amount of cabinet positions and secretaries and departments and regulators and inspectors general that go into the day-to-day activities of the federal government, no one can hold them accountable because the Congress does not have sheer time. You're right. The federal government has expanded its role to a massive amount, and it must be spared down. It has to be.
I have another thought when we come back about that.
Well, good, because I'm telling you, I'm bogged down and Congress doesn't have time. It's because they spend needless hours on needless issues.
I'll talk about that.
571-2428.
WFIA, The Spirit.
Well, I just got my new smartphone.
So, what are you going to download next?
As soon as I turn it on.
So what's next?
Well, I can't wait.
For what?
Next.
The app you're going to download.
Next.
The downloadable app.
Yes.
It's next.
The one and only.
Look, when you go to the App Store.
Yes.
And you click on the next app.
You bet I will.
The next app.
Why not? It's got everything I need.
I don't even know what it is!
The next radio app with free built-in FM receiver on your smartphone. Download today.
Next Radio.
My name's Alex, and I'm a senior at Christian Academy. I like that I can grow academically and spiritually at the same time with so many people at Christian Academy. You're really challenged to make your faith your own and to choose it instead of blindly labeling yourself a Christian. There's nothing like Christian Academy because we have such a strong community of athletes, of intellectuals, artists, musicians. I never pictured myself being an actor or on stage, and I ended up getting a lead role, and it was one of the best things I think I've ever done in my entire life. It was so fun. Spirit is incredible at football games and stuff. We always have huge crowds. I just feel like I've formed a bond. I definitely think Christian Academy has prepared me for college because I've been able to take AP courses where I've gotten college credit that I can already use. If this sounds like something you're looking for, just give us a call and schedule a tour, or you can check out our website. I would thank my parents over and over again for letting me attend Christian Academy because I think it's the best high school experience that I could have.
Hi, this is Chip Ingram.
Hi, I'm Chuck Swindoll.
This is Steve Arterburn. Congratulations, Louisville. For 50 years, you've been blessed with a radio station in your community that has helped spread the good news of the gospel and help bring new followers to Jesus Christ.
We're so proud to be a part of such a historic milestone.
From all of us, a very sincere
happy anniversary.
Thanks for listening to Louisville's Christian Talk and Teaching Station. Now 50 years on the air. We're WFIA, The Spirit.
You're listening to Just Ask Joyce on WFIA, The Spirit.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Garrett Sivaking, political analyst / strategist, is with us today.
And radio show host.
And radio show host. I know we can add that now. I'm so proud for you, Garrett. All right, so Webby, you had a thought I don't want you to
Well, we were talking about the size of government. Off the air, we've been talking about it. But see, Garrett, the other thing you said, well, they don't have time. Neither do they have the expertise.
Right.
That would be like taking me as a preacher and telling me to go down to the mechanic shop, Joe's Auto Repair, and him give me go in there and get this motor running. I would have no clue what I'm doing. We've got people who have no clue about what that industry might be about, making regulations on that industry to thwart them from becoming productive and helping the economy.
Yeah, it's become unmanageable, and they can't, we cannot continue to have this massive amount of government. The 10th Amendment was there because we're supposed to have state laboratories which go through and test policies to see how they're going to work in their homes, and we do that, but more power needs to be back to the states, whether it's education or some of the issues in healthcare, some housing and urban development. Some of those issues need to be placed back in the states where they do the best job and they have the more active legislators.
And quite frankly, I'm hoping and praying that someone with a fresh voice, someone that's not been bogged down in politics, perhaps, will bring that kind of structure. I don't know if he will be able to, should he gain the presidency. But I'm telling you, as an American, I'm ready for that kind of structure to be analyzed, looked at very, very carefully, and honed down. And, and maybe some of the power put back into the state's hands that has been confiscated, if you will, by our federal government.
Well, and hopefully they'll have the leaders that can advise on that and bring in the expertise that they need to move those moving back. I mean, and that's the thing. You have a situation here where the Clintons are going to increase the size of the federal government.
We know that.
They promised that. So if that's what you're looking for, then you need to be looking at that. But that's, I don't think that's, yeah.
And again, we've hammered this idea, Garrett, you and I, while the primaries were going on, the caucuses and what have you. But we can't stop beating this drum about our voting rights. It is so important that we get out and vote this time. We cannot stay at home and say, this is one election I just don't want to participate in. We can't do that. We can't afford to do that this time around.
No.
And, because I only see, I wish that we had a better slate to choose from, quite frankly, but we don't. This is it.
Well, one of the things that needs to happen at both conventions, if you're going to have a productive election conversation, first of all, Donald Trump and his former primary rivals the primary rivals themselves. I'm not asking you to come out and say, I'm voting for Donald Trump. I'm not asking you to come out and endorse him. What needs to happen is that Donald Trump, his prospective VP nominee, whoever that may be, and the 17 or 16, if one of them is one of that perspective, need to sit down, have a conversation, and talk about what they stood for. Because, even though Donald Trump won fair and square, he still got he didn't get 50%. And he needs to speak to these candidates, and these candidates need to speak to him because they represent people who should have their voice heard in this process. Hillary Clinton also needs to do the same thing. However, I don't think that Bernie Sanders is going to do that. In fact, you are already seeing a coalescing of Bernie Sanders supporters behind Jill Stein for her environmental stances. She was on CNN today, did an interview in that, and that is a problem for Hillary Clinton. That is going to be a major problem for Hillary Clinton going forward. They talk about Republican disunity. They need to talk about the Democrats because the Democrats are far from unified.
Oh, absolutely. But, can I just say, and maybe you can shed some light on this in the 4 o'clock hour, but it really disturbed me when I saw just a snippet of news about it costing the taxpayers $38,000. And I'm assuming that's a day for Bernie Sanders not to withdraw from this race. I don't understand that, and I'm hoping you can...
Security.
So I know security is part of it, but it's got to be more than that.
No, that's what his Secret Service agents cost.
$38,000?
Yep.
That's insane. I mean, to me, if you're going to run for president, it ought to be on your own tab until you make it. All right? We'll be back at the 4 o'clock hour. Join us. In the meantime, I'm in battle for his cause.
The Spirit, 94.7 WFIA FM New Albany, Louisville, is a service of Salem Media Group, online at WFIAFM.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Republican presidential contender Donald Trump says he'd appoint judges who uphold the Constitution, reform the country's immigration policies, and roll back Obamacare. Those are items on Trump's to-do list for his first 100 days in office should he win the presidency. In a major speech in New York today, Trump also blasted his likely Democratic opponent, saying Hillary Clinton's record as Secretary of State, nothing to be proud of.
Hillary Clinton's tryout for the presidency has produced one deadly foreign policy disaster after another. One by one, they're all bad. She's virtually done nothing right. She's virtually done nothing good.
Bernie Sanders, meanwhile, all but acknowledging that Clinton will be the Democratic nominee. I changed my mind. The words of Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida saying that he will run for re-election after all.
We spent about 10 days as a family going over it and thinking about it, and we were fully aware of the opportunities that we were walking away from, but it's the right choice.
Rubio talking with C-SPAN. Some House Democrats demanding a vote on gun control legislation, staging a sit-in on the House floor.
We will occupy this floor we will no longer be denied a right to vote.
Connecticut's John Larson among the Democrats demanding House Speaker Paul Ryan keep the House in session through its planned week-long recess next week to debate and vote on gun legislation. A sheriff's deputy has been shot and killed near New Orleans. Happened after the deputy stopped a pedestrian